Welcome to the Retiring Real Estate Investor podcast, where we will discuss how to defer taxes on the sale of your property, earning passive real estate income, and everything you need to know to go from active investor to passive investor. Join us as we interview passive investment sponsors, explore the journey of other retiring real estate investors, and share our due diligence process we perform to select passive investments. Investment advisory services provided by Insight Investment Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor. This podcast is only intended for clients and interested investors residing in the states in which we are registered to provide investment advisory services or exempt from registration. Please contact us to determine if the firm provides investment advisory services in the state where you reside. All content on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered investment advice. Material presented is believed to be reliable sources, and no representations are made by our firm as to another party's informational accuracy or completeness. Insight Investment Advisors, LLC and its representatives do not provide tax or legal advice, and nothing herein should be construed as such. Always consult with your tax advisor or attorney regarding your specific circumstances. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Retiring Real Estate Investor. I'm your host, Brandon Bruckman. I'm excited today to be joined by Joel Miller. And this is the best intro I can give for Joel is he's been investing in real estate longer than I've been alive. And I'm not young by any stretch of the imagination, as our listeners know. But the good thing is Joel started when he was 10, so he's not young either. Joel, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Hey, Brandon. Thanks for having me. I'm not sure where you got the investing at 10, but I started thinking about it that soon, and I bought my first property. I guess it was like 22, 20, But thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this because I believe I'm going to be able to relate to your audience because I am working toward being a retired real estate investor. And so I've got some insights on that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. And we got a book to talk about. But let's start here. Sort of, Joel, if you could introduce yourself to the audience about sort of where you started, how you got to where you are, the full origin story. Give our audience a little bit of an introduction about who Joel is.
Okay, well, I am in my 48th year as a landlord. And I can point back to two things that happened to me in junior high that kind of set me on the path that the two paths that I've had mostly in my life, and that is some investor built four unit apartment buildings on the edge of our subdivision when I was in junior high, and I got all those tenants on my paper route, but I have a distinct memory of about 8th grade being in my bedroom and kind of doing the math on what this whole rental real estate thing looked like, because we all lived with our parents in single family homes that they owned, and this rental thing was a little different. I thought, well, okay, they pay to live there, but they don't own the place, and whatever rudimentary understanding I could have of it at that time. And I thought, I think I'd like to do that. And I kind of put that in my back pocket, as going forward. But the other thing was one of the older kids in the neighborhood built a pirate radio station in his basement with the antenna on a flagpole behind the house. Now, pirate meaning illegal, unlicensed radio station. So I got to hang out there, and that's when I decided I wanted to be a DJ. So I actually did radio production during high school, and then I went away to college to study accounting because you can use accounting in whatever business that you go into. But I made sure I went to a place, Grove City College in Western Pennsylvania. I'm in Erie, Pennsylvania, by the way, right along Lake Erie, about halfway between Cleveland and Buffalo. And I made sure I went to a place that had a real good radio station. I worked at commercial radio stations in college, and about halfway through college, got hired to come back and be the weekend guy on the big radio station in Orton, big 50,000 watt FM top 40 radio station. And so I transferred and continued on with my degree in accounting, got out in 4 years. But right before I graduated from college, my job went full time at the radio station. So for the first time, then I could accept the calls from basically kids from schools calling the radio station, wanting the DJs to come out and do record offs in their gym. Changed my life. Made $75 one night. I said, "Oh, this is something," So I only stayed in radio about a year after that, and I pioneered the mobile DJ business in this part of the country. Did 5,051 appearances in 35 years. And I eventually retired from that in 2011. But I also started a little accounting practice after I got out of college. And that is when not long after that, a couple of years after, well, less than about a year and a half after I graduated from college, I bought my first rental property. So those two things existed, well, three for a while because I had the accounting practice, but I had to sell that before long because the DJ business was getting crazy busy and was buying more property. So that's really what I did for all those years, the entertaining and investing in rental property, which leads me to one of the main premises of my book, which is that real estate can be added to something else that you have going, that you don't want to give up, a passion, a job that you really love, a hobby that you spend a lot of time on. It doesn't have to be an either or thing. So as I did that, those two things existed together for many, many years, and then after I retired from the DJ business, I kind of ramped up the rental property stuff. And then also along the way, about 1991, started flipping houses. I have flipped over 100 houses, and that was before flip was a real estate term, from the TV programs that used it. We called it quick turn, something like that, And then in 2018, I got into what I primarily do the most now is I am a hard money lender to the other investors that are in this area here, although we still have our rentals. And that gives me a great pleasure to be a part of the equation for the others that are a little earlier on in their journey. And that kind of ties in with one of the things you can do when you are retiring in the real estate business, because you have a lot of knowledge that can give you confidence in loaning on projects that are similar to the ones you've worked on over the years. And being a part of the investment community still, but not having a lot of properties to manage, or because you're not accumulating properties anymore. Maybe you've sold some and you're using your resources, maybe a pile of cash, let's just call it that you've got to be a lender, to the others in an area where you're already familiar. It's not like you came from some other line of work and you had some money and you said, hey, I think I'd like to be a hard money lender to real estate investors, but you don't know anything about real estate investing. That would be a bad thing. But if you've come out of the real estate space, yourself, then you not only can add value to the projects when the other investors have questions about them, but also a confidence in knowing what's going on, so that you could be a lender. But anyway, so then the last thing that happened was I wrote this book, which took me like 4 years. It came out last October. Can I tell you about the book?
Absolutely, please.
Well, it's called Build Real Estate Wealth, and the subtitle is Enjoy the Journey of Rental Property Investment. And it's become it is the big book in changing your life with real estate investing. It was getting a little long when I was writing. People said, "Oh, you got to pare that down," because most of them are like 200 or 300 pages, and then it's 460 pages. But so we own it. It says right on the front cover, the big book on real estate investing. But it's Ron LeGrand. Do you know who Ron LeGrand is? He's kind of like the guru of real estate gurus. A lot of people you picture as real estate gurus actually have him as their guru. He's been
the guru of
late 70s. Yeah, he's been around a long time. He got a hold of the book and he said, "I wish I would have had." This is his review that he wrote. He said, "I wish I would have had his book when I was getting started."
I love it. What a ringing endorsement, huh?
Yeah. I mean, the reviewers basically say this is not the kind of book you buy and read and, put in your bookshelf, say, yeah, I've got that thing over there. This is the kind of book you buy, you read, and you park on your desk because you're going to refer to it. It's written for the established investor in real estate, but also people that are thinking about getting into real estate, or maybe already have some, and they're looking for something to supercharge, whatever they've already got going on.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is that it provides all the information you need to get started and maintain an existing business, or a business you don't have yet, I should say, start and maintain. But it's a little different from other books which are in this area that kind of just talk about acquisition and the math of the whole thing and how to manage property and tenants.
Mm-hmm.
This actually starts with mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It takes you through entity formation, and then finding and negotiating and financing deals, and then preparing a property to either rent or sell it, finding tenants and managing your properties, the tax implications of owning rental property,
Yes.
which is a big thing, and preparing financial statements to look good for the bankers. A lot of people get hung up because they can't get loans. And after all, this business runs on OPM, other people's money, and they're great at their business, but they can't present that to financial institutions. And so their plans get thwarted a lot. I have a lot of insights on that, a lot of techniques. And there's a whole chapter devoted to doing that. Also, then we get into some philosophical things like understanding the difference between riches and wealth.
Mm-hmm. Describe that. What is the difference between those?
Unlike the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is you have the facts. Wisdom is you know how to use the facts to apply them properly and do good. With riches, I mean that's having the money. Okay, but wealth is knowing what to do with the money to do good in your own life and in your community. I mean, you all know people that have lots of money and they're miserable. And people that don't have much material things and they're happy and they consider themselves wealthy. So we have a big discussion on that and contributing to your community financially, to your church, whatever. It's something that people later on, I think, could be interested in later on in their career, could be interested in, because they've been around a while and presumably accumulated some resources, So we talk a lot about that. And then there is bonus material on house flipping, although I have a chapter in there about house flipping, but I cut it off at the point where we'll get to the how-to. There's a QR code there that if you own the book, you can follow the QR code and it takes you to bonus material for the how-to. I didn't want to throw in all the how-to stuff in a book that was actually on rental. But it is fully described in there, the house flipping. But we have a lot of stuff in there about best practices for keeping calamity out of your life. I'm all about heading off calamity ahead of time so that you're not just putting out fires after something happened. It's how to do things that prevent as much calamity from coming into your life financially and so on.
Could you give us an example of that? I mean, I'm sure, like, as you've written this book, as a reference book, I like the way that you refer to that as don't read it and put it down, read it and keep it close. Yeah. You must have experienced these things firsthand. Like or
known other people that did things that I saw that I said, well, I can see how you could have prevented that.
Yep.
I mean, just simple stuff in some cases, but more detailed things in others. Yeah. Like, for example, the whole financial statement thing. That can bring you a lot of calamity if you can't bring all your facts together to present to a lender. But also things like you're gonna laugh. I literally cover stuff you should keep in a fire safe. And you look at the list and you say, yeah, man, if even one of these things were destroyed, I'm thinking how much bother I would have to replace it, or how much my life might get changed because I can't replace it, or something like that. There's information there about like here's the calamity that I saw with a lot of people in the mobile DJ business. Okay, you get cash for a lot of your jobs, so these guys would go through life not reporting a lot of their income. Yeah, and then they go to a bank and they say, well, I need a loan. Well, and I actually make a lot more money than what I'm reporting here. So the banker's sitting across the table looking at you saying, so you're a liar and you want me to lend you money. I don't think so. So
By
all
the
we can
way,
work with
you're
is what
committing
you
a
can afford.
crime. You're evading taxes, by the way. Thanks for admitting to the crime.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
exactly. The book contains over 150 checklists of things like what we're talking.
Wow.
Bullet pointed checklists of everything from tenant screening questions to, which is huge. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll go on from there, but I just on this side, I want to say if you don't get down the skill of selecting the people that are going to live in your properties, worth tens, maybe millions of dollars for an extended period of time without your direct supervision, you're not going to have a good time in the rental property business. Now, in your audience, I think they probably already learned that tenant selection is really key.
I've seen the pictures where it hasn't gone well.
Yeah,
The
sure.
selection of trash, brand new units that they just renovated from, or probably poor tenant decisions. Not fun.
So that's one of the checklists, like tenant screening questions, questions to ask, references that people give, questions to ask contractors, due diligence questions, negotiation questions and techniques. There's even a list, if you're really a beginner, a list of tools you should have.
Yeah.
But as I say, there's a lot of stuff in there that people that have been in the business a long time, like in your audience, that they could benefit from as they're running their properties before they actually get to retirement. There's always something that you could learn. But we also do talk about things to do after your retirement. How to sell your property and so on.
Can I zoom you all the way back to 8th grade?
Yeah.
You have to be the most curious person that I've ever talked to as an 8th grader wondering about rental properties on your block. Where do you think that comes from? That level of curiosity that you obviously possess?
I don't know, because my parents were not investors. The only property they owned were 2 different houses that we lived in. And my father was an auditor, an excise tax auditor for the Internal Revenue Service. So I know I got my interest in bookkeeping then, which led to a degree in accounting. And I guess I always had an interest in finances because I wanted to just do better. I mean, my parents did fine, but so you say, well, what can I do to be even better? I am aware of people that live in better houses and drive better cars and do cooler stuff. Not that I was deprived, but there's better. How do you do that?
Yeah.
And so I guess I always had that curiosity. It was sort of an equal thing, that the curiosity in that and the curiosity about radio. And at the time that I had that initial curiosity in radio, the mobile DJ business was not even a thing. I thought I'd spend a career maybe on the air and then maybe in management in radio, and then maybe broadcast facility ownership. But I wanted to invest in rental properties in addition to that. And then the whole mobile thing blew up.
Yeah. You invented, you mentioned pioneering that mobile business, but you've really pioneered sort of a lifestyle that I think is encouraged, or I encourage for my kids at this point in this stage in their lives, is to think about, you have a job, but what else do you have going on? Whereas you pioneered the side hustle.
Yeah, because a lot of the things that people have an interest in, or what you would even consider to be a good job, is not actually providing enough income, nor is it providing any kind of retirement or a significant amount of retirement. So that's what real estate can do with rental property in particular, because it can add income to what you've already got going along the way, and then provide a better retirement than you would have from just making contributions up to your limit in each year in some sort of a IRA. I mean, it's there's only a limitation to what you can get there, and of course, you're directly affected by things that are totally out of your control, such as the stock market. Real estate is is different from anything you buy on an index.
Yep.
In the sense that with real estate, you have so much more of an opportunity to not just make the selection of the thing you buy, like you would do with a share of stock, but then affect its value after you
Mhm.
own it by doing improvements or raising rents or whatever you can do that is in your control. Then you have absolutely no control of anything you buy on an index. So
Mhm.
that's just a hope.
Right.
With a lot of research, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand that there's ways to mitigate your risk, but
Yeah.
uh,
You're not holding the wheel in that scenario. In the real estate, we'll say this to our investors all the time: is there's a big difference between being passive and active.
yeah,
With the real estate that you own, you're active and you can impact the value, and you should be compensated for that.
right. And there's a
Passive,
difference.
yeah.
There's a difference between speculation and investing. When
Yeah.
you are speculating, let's say that that's buying vacant land, for example. Yeah, you're in the real estate business, but you're hoping something else will happen for you to make a profit, something you don't
Mhm.
have any control over.
Mhm.
Whereas if you have, um, rental income, then there's a lot of control there. So,
What led you walk us through maybe the process of the buying of your investment properties? Like where did you start? Was it single family duplexes? Was it multifamily? What was that journey look like from sort of an asset type perspective?
well, I knew right from the beginning that I wanted to invest in multifamily. I mean, back in the 70s when I was getting, ramping up to this, first property was 1978 in January. Um, I was reading hardcover books by like Bill Nickerson and Al Lowry, and there was no internet. And eventually, we did have the late night infomercial, half hour
Yeah.
TV gurus on cable TV selling their tape. And
Yeah.
you get a course with 8 or 10 cassette tapes and a manual to follow along to whenever you listen to the tapes. But I knew that I was after multifamily, and the first one was 2 units that I immediately changed into 3 before I even, had it up and running, and continued on with mostly, 2, 3 unit places, and ultimately then got larger properties, townhouse type apartment complex sort of things, and I didn't ever set out to buy a single family home to be a rental, but I have ended up with a few
Mm.
from like buying somebody's entire portfolio and
Yeah.
they had some in there,
Mhm.
and there were a few instances where I was flipping that by the time we were done, I realized I wasn't going to be able to make enough money on this flip. And so I held on to several properties that were single family homes that were originally supposed to be a flip that I just turned into a rental, and then years later maybe sold for much more than I would have been able to after enjoying the rental income also along the way.
It seemed to take a minute before you started doing the flips or the quick turns.
Yeah.
It was investing first for a while, and then the 90s hit, and then you started doing some of the quick turns. What led you to doing a little bit of a change there? Do you consider that a strategic change for you, or was it more of an
Yeah.
addition to what you were doing?
Yeah, it was a change in the sense that it was an addition to what I
Hmm.
was already doing because I still continued to accumulate some rentals, and I would use the profits from flipping the houses to invest in the rentals,
Gotcha. Okay.
like for a down payment or something like that. Um, but that that was something that I eventually had the opportunity to do that I just didn't have initially because I didn't have the connections or the capital.
Hmm.
With flipping, a lot of times you need all cash to go buy stuff, and you need all cash to uh, do the renovations on it. So initially, I had uh, partners that they put up the money, and I did the work, and then we
Hmm.
split the profits.
Hmm.
But that I only did that for like 3 houses, and then I was on my own and for another 100 or so, you know. But so that is, if you want to talk about how that kind of ties in with retirement, um, you see, there's always somebody at that stage that's looking for the capital to buy and or rehab a single family home and then sell it for a profit, or to buy and or rehab a keeper rental property that they're going to stabilize and then
Yep.
get permanent financing on within a year or so, after the bank likes the property, and the appraisal that you get after you do the rehab is enough that once you consider the loan to value that they will give you, like 80% of the appraisal, for example, that 80% is enough to pay off 100% of the loan that you borrowed. So, if you're a hard money lender, there's a big opportunity to develop that in your community. I mean, you don't even have to lend outside of where you live. Especially if you've been involved with the investor organization, the landlord association, whatever it is, in your area, your RIA. That is something that has been a big part of my development. I got involved with the professional organization here in 1981. I mean, they started almost within months of when I bought my first property. So it was a few years later that I finally connected that to that, and then a number of years later became part of the leadership. I've been on the board since like 2011 or so, and I'm our longest serving past president, and I'm currently the vice president. And I teach the Landlord 101 classes to the beginning investors. And I also teach some more advanced classes. And this keeps me in touch with other investors that are at all stages of their journeys. And so I'm familiar with these people, and if they want to borrow money from me, they're not even asking to borrow money for anything I haven't, any type of a project I haven't already done multiple times, So
I was going to ask you how important.
Tips,
I was going to ask you how important that building that network is around these items in your particular community, and you're alluding to it perfectly right here. If someone's starting out new and they want to learn, is that not the first place they go? Is their RIA and local apartment association?
It should be, and in fact, if somebody hears about me and they call me up and they want to borrow money for a project, if they're not already a member of the organization, ours is called the Apartment Association of Northwestern Pennsylvania. If they're not already a member, I insist that they become a member. I want them coming to meetings, being active. I want to see what other investors they're taking their cues from, and so on. And particularly if they are getting into rental property, I insist that they take the Landlord 101 class, of which I'm one of the main instructors for. So hopefully they take it whenever I was teaching it, and get some knowledge in that area, because hard money lending is, I always tell the newer investors, say, look, I'm not your first stop. You actually have to have some experience before I'm gonna, stroke you a check for $100,000 to buy some property. I got to see that you have dragged a few rehabs for flips across the finish line, and things turn out the way you said they would when they started. And if you're operating rentals, I got to see that you are doing that successfully. That's what gives them my comfort level, because really all that happens here, and this gets back to what you were talking about, the importance of these relationships. The hard money lending is pretty much done on relationships, on a handshake. Somebody calls up and they describe a project they have, and if it kind of passes muster over the phone, the next step is for me to walk the property with them inside and out of every unit, with the realtor or seller or whoever needs to let us in. And I'll just pretty much tell you right on the spot whether I'm going to do the deal and how much it would be, and what the terms would be. But I ask a lot of questions like, hey, have you seen that? What's your plan for this? What about that over there? And that's from my own experience of doing projects like what we're looking at. And I can tell you that sometimes by the end of that walkthrough, that investor is absolutely sure they do not want to buy that property. Not because I talked them out of it. I just asked them the right questions that made me think. And so then if it's a go, I just come back to the office and send out a loan terms email that they reply they agree to, and we send it off to the attorneys, and then it's all locked down. It's all like you're borrowing from a bank, in the sense that we've got all the necessary paperwork, and but with hard money lending, what's cut out or shortened is the underwriting. The bank is going to put you through for 2 months before they tell you that they can't do the loan.
Yeah, you're underwriting it in 10 minutes because you probably have the property before you even showed up, right?
Right.
Yeah. What value? I mean, there must be a ton of value that just the borrower in that scenario who's doing the flip, would find just working with you.
Exactly. That's like intrinsic value that
Yeah.
comes along. I make myself available to the investors during the project if they want.
Mhm.
If they want me to come in and say, "Hey, what would you do here? Look what we've run into," or I'm looking at a property later today, actually, where the investor wants, and he's one of my regular loan clients, wants me to say, do you think I should just do a limited amount here and sell this,
Mhm.
or do you think I should go all the way
Mhm.
and put more money in it? And do you think I would make a bigger profit if I took the time and money to take it a little further?
Mhm.
See,
Mhm.
because the profit might be about the same either way.
Mhm.
Just depends.
So you're probably looking at him saying, "Hey, actually, I want you to churn it faster. If the profit's going to be the same, just time
Yeah,
value of money kind of
right.
equation there makes more sense, right?" Here's a
Right.
debate that we've had amongst our clients that do lend money is, and how do you think about this? It'd be very helpful. Is how do you think about limits on a per borrower perspective, right? Do you look across maybe your full lending portfolio? Do you look across their just general competence level, how much you lent to them? How do you think your way through that?
Well, it's a sliding scale, Brandon. You know, uh, uh, experience has a lot to do with it. I have some of my main clients are just really experienced in it, and they have money, but their um, business plan is to borrow my money, so they're not tying up their money. And my fees, my points and interest are just part of what they calculate for their project and the ease of getting to the closing a couple weeks later and so on. And so, I do just about every deal they drag into the conversation,
Mhm.
assuming we have the cash. But um, I I would do with somebody that's starting out. I would do a little. Okay, let's see how you do on your first one.
Mhm.
It's nice that you found the second deal, but let me see how you're finishing up here. And I know they don't have a lot of their own resources outside of that project. So, but I can tell you that even with some of the bigger clients I've had, there were some points I said, I think we just need to hold off here for a while.
Mhm.
And one of the big factors is um, since a lot of these guys are actually doing buy and hold projects,
Mhm.
one of the big factors is, okay, are you actually on track for your refis?
Mhm. Mhm.
We can
Mhm.
do 6 or 8 projects. I know you can physically get these done with your crew and so on. And I know you can operate them as rentals. That's not the issue. But hey, don't forget, my loan's only for a year with a 6-month extension.
Yep.
So uh, how are you doing on packaging a bunch of these together and getting the refi? So sometimes we hold up till somebody refis and then we kind of, and they don't necessarily refi all the projects we have out there, but maybe a
Mhm.
certain group. And then once they do that group, we can move on loan and small money.
I got you. No, it makes a ton of sense, and that's exactly the latter scenario. One that I was thinking about for our clients is how quickly you are churning that capital, and I think that's one of the
Mhm.
issues that we're having is they're definitely at the top of the scale in terms of people that you trust, right? And you want to do all the deals with them, but the velocity of money is slowing down a little bit, and it starts to make folks nervous. It really is a qualitative thing that you're working your way through on an individual by individual, project by project basis. Am I
Right.
picking up on that correctly?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the underwriting, if you want to call
Yeah.
it. And at the same time, that's the advantage to the investor from not having to go through all that with the bank for a couple of months. And then you may close, you may not, or you may
Mhm.
get the original terms and you may not. So,
That's perfect. And that's the thing you think about. So maybe spin back to, I took you way down the lending side. Maybe come back to, I think we want to talk a little bit about thinking about retiring from
mhm,
the active real estate, how hard money lending plays in. How do you think about it, right? So our listeners know we spend most of our time with obviously retiring real estate investors, the name of the podcast. How do you think your way through that? Like what triggers you to start thinking about hey, maybe some of this rental activity that I'm doing, I could trim back a little bit or eliminate and just go hard money? How do you kind of think your way through it?
Well, I'll tell you the backstory here. My book was started in 2020 during COVID. Okay, everybody's sitting around their house, has a lot of extra time, But at the same time, 2020, my son, who is now, as we record this, he's 19, and he was born in 05. Okay, and it became apparent that he was interested in this stuff as well and wanted to follow it, as opposed to like, I want to be a professional athlete or I just want to get a job, that sort of thing. So the book was essentially written as though he might be the only one that reads it.
Okay.
There's nothing in this book that I wouldn't tell my own son to do. Nothing that I haven't done or that I wouldn't do if I had the opportunity. And it was not written to a faceless populace that I may never meet who is supposed to buy the book, that I'm just going to write stuff that I think that they want to hear and will make them buy the book. This was written, and they would never hold me accountable because they'll never meet me. The person holding me accountable to what's in this book lives down the hall, And so I poured everything into it that I want him to know to be successful in this. And I think he's going to take it further than I ever did. So he graduated from high school last year in June of 2024 and bought his first rental property about a week after he got out of high school.
Awesome.
And he just bought his second, it was a 3-unit. He just bought his second one. It's a 2-unit about 6 weeks ago. And our plan is that I'm going to sell him all of our properties. See, my wife and I would like to accomplish that when he gets out of college. He just finished his first year in the business department at Penn State. And so we have, fortunately, many properties that are free and clear, or the mortgage will be paid way down in a few years from now. That we could just pay it off at that point. And so our intention here is to sell the properties and hold the paper, so that we've converted the income from rentals, which was accompanied by managing properties, to just getting a check for financing the properties that our son now owns and manages. See, and he's off on his own, using his college education and experience that he has with his own rentals that he's acquired along the way. And he fully intends to have more of them before he gets out of college that he bought on his own. So that is another great path to retiring out of the rental business without actually just selling all your property. See? And you can only do it, of course, if the property is free and clear, or if you can afford to just pay off the mortgage, because you want to still be in first position with the mortgage that you hold on the property. Now, you don't have to sell it to your own son or child or whatever. Selling the property to other investors accomplishes the same thing. You are converting your cash flow from rental income to loan income, mortgage payment income. And presumably, not everybody needs, let's say they just want to be out of the rental business. They don't need to have the entire pile of cash you would get from selling all the properties at one time, because then they'd have to figure out something to do with that. Well, if you take back a mortgage on a property that you sell, let's say the going rate is 6%, for the interest that you're going to earn on essentially investing in that mortgage. It's a little hard to consistently beat 6% with other sort of assets that you might say, well, I'll take my pile of money from selling my property and go out and buy, like even bonds or stocks. I mean, you would know a little bit more about that than I would, but I mean, it's hard to lock in consistently 6% rates and still have that secured by real estate.
Mm-hmm.
You see, you might find yourself investing in something that is not secured by anything that you can't have any control over, you know? So that's my kind of two-pronged approach to the retirement is selling the properties, whether they're to him or to somebody else. We'll see how many of them he wants and is able to afford them when we're ready. And, getting the monthly income for living from that, as well as continuing to do the hard money lending.
On a personal level, though, it doesn't sound like you're intending on slowing anything down anytime soon, which is awesome.
Yes, I am, because I need more time to ski and snowboard, mountain bike and four-wheel, and do whitewater rafting trips and ropes challenge courses. I need more time to do that stuff.
Yes. I don't want you to those are important activities, and you're not allowed to change those at all. I want to have maybe two more questions on the book, and then we'll sort of wrap up. I was going to ask about the inspiration there, but you described it so well. Like, this is written for your son, so it really is the full playbook. And that was the primary inspiration to go off on this venture, correct?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure that I would have written the book if everything else was exactly the same, except I did not have my son, and he is my only son, my only child. I got married a little later in life, and my wife is like 20 years younger than me, and by the time this comes out, I'll be 71. So I realized that I wasn't, even if he was interested in this stuff, I wasn't necessarily going to be around for a long part of his career.
Yeah.
So this was my legacy to him. If Dad's not here, he can look up what Dad said.
I literally just said this last night at a dinner about my own children is, yes, I do want to give them the wealth and the trust and all those things, but I really want to give them the playbook. And so that's me saying it, and here's you doing it. For the starting investor, say in the case of your son, has anything changed from the way that you would approach it today versus the way you approached it 40 years ago? Is it really the same playbook? And we should, like, the things that are kind of rolling through my mind are the interest rate environment, how difficult it is for lending, price, blah, 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 right? It's all, yeah. If you're watching us, like, Joel's like, don't worry about that stuff, right? We shouldn't worry about that, should we? The playbook's the same, isn't it?
Yeah, the basics are the same with investing in real estate that are rentals. I mean, you're basically just buying something that you're going to let somebody else use, and they pay you for that. And if you had to borrow money to buy it, you get your payments are more than what that costs, along with your expenses. It's pretty simple. But I've been in this business long enough. I don't even know how many economic cycles I've been through. I mean, when I bought my first rental in 1978, Jimmy Carter was president, and he was struggling with inflation, and prime was 22%. And it took a while for it to come down. I was a tenant for the first 5.5 years that I owned rental property. I was renting from somebody else. So when I bought my first personal residence in 1983, I was pleased to get an interest rate of 12.5%.
Wow.
And so, what I say is that a good deal is a good deal. There are good deals to be found no matter what the economic conditions are. Somehow, some way, they can be maybe a little harder to find sometimes, but just remember, the best deals are the off-market deals. And there's always somebody that has a reason that they got to sell what they've got. And if you are the person in front of them that can solve their problems, I mean, that's how you get good deals. It's not just you did something for yourself. You did something for all the other parties involved. The seller, maybe the neighbors, maybe the tenants that are in an existing place that aren't being cared for. A bank that is just, is possibly seeing a foreclosure coming. You got to make it a win-win-win-win-win deal. And we talk about that a lot in the philosophical part of the blog. So it doesn't matter when you start. If you're starting when prime is 22%, or you're starting when it's 3.25%, like it unnaturally was for several years up until a couple of years ago, that's not normal. Just I want you to understand, it's not normal for prime to be. It's more normal now.
Yeah.
So prime is what, 6, 7? I forget what it is.
The answer is get the playbook and get started.
Yeah.
Get moving.
Yeah, you no matter how experienced you are, no matter whether you're starting or whether you are retiring, you will get something out of this, out of build real estate wealth that can help you. And it's available in ebook or a paperback. People keep telling me I've got to do an audio book, but do you have any idea how long it would take to sit down on 160 pages, even for a former disc jockey?
Yeah, if anyone's in a prime position to do it, it's DJ Joel to do it, and you're like, I still don't want to do it.
And there's no way I would hire somebody else to do it. It just couldn't let that happen.
No, you got to do it in your own voice. You got to do it in your voice, your DJ voice. There's no way we can replicate that. Joel, this has been awesome. I would love to do a round 2 and pull out like a couple sections of the book if you're game for it, like deep dive a little bit more on some of those. I think that could be really fun.
Yeah, I would like that. In the meantime, there is a website that is dedicated to the book. It's very simple. It's joelmillerbooks.com, JoelMillerbooks.com. And on the front page of that, you can click on something that'll show you the entire table of contents in detail. So you can see, well, okay, I see what he's talking about, And there's another button you can you click on that'll give you sample content from each of the 16 chapters, like 2 or 3 of the best paragraphs, so you can see it. And all the buy buttons, we don't sell the book from the website, but the buy buttons on the website will take you directly to the page on Amazon where it's for sale. And you can search for Joel Miller on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and joelmillerbooks.com.
We're going to link to all of that in the show notes so people know exactly where to go, and they'll get there and they'll get it. Joel, thank you so much for joining us. There's so much knowledge here. We're going to get a round 2 going because I want to dig in some more. There's so much knowledge here to be shared, but for now, thank you so much for coming on. And we're going to get a lot out of this and a lot more out of the book for sure.
You're very welcome, Brandon. Thanks for having me. I look forward to coming back again, and we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive.
Yes, that'd be perfect. Thanks again. And listeners, thank you for listening. We will see you next time.